It has been a very tumultuous 1.5 years in Bangladesh, with anti-India sentiment peaking under Muhammad Yunus.
But we know that it was neither spontaneous nor was it a student uprising. It was a meticulously designed regime change operation. The Jamaat-e-Islami has been holding the reins of power in Bangladesh for the last 18 months. Muhammad Yunus has been their spokesperson, more or less. He says there's no question of a woman ever leading the Jamaat-e-Islami. Women are meant to be in the home. And he used terribly derogatory words for women who leave the home and go out and work.
How do you reconcile with these two statements which seem to be contradictory?
It shows that actually the people of Bangladesh, the students, Gen Z, which is supposed to have led the uprising, Gen Z remembers the liberation war.
What gives or gave Muhammad Yunus the right to sign a trade deal when he knew that 3 days from now there would be a new government in place?
Erupted on the university. They came up and said, religion and culture are two sides of the same coin. We must have both. So this is their approach. It is not the Jamaat-e-Islami approach where you have Wahhabi Islam all the way through.
So Yunus can be president if he fixes the match like that.
The elections actually took place. Muhammad Yunus went to London in the month of June last year. And there he's supposed to have met Tarique Rahman and they're supposed to have discussed this and worked out a system. The democracies who value their democracy. Can you imagine an election in UK where Labour Party is banned? Can you imagine an election in USA where Republican Party is banned? But in Bangladesh, yes, that's fine. That's par for the course. And it's actually happened.
"17 years in exile and Tarique Rahman comes back and is sworn in as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh." It has been a very tumultuous 1.5 years in Bangladesh, with anti-India sentiment peaking under Muhammad Yunus. What's in store for the India-Bangladesh relationship? For this very important question, I have with me in my studio Ambassador Veena Sikri, former High Commissioner to Bangladesh. Jai Hind, ma'am, and a very warm welcome.
Jai Hind. Thank you for inviting me.
Ma'am, what do you think are the immediate challenges for Tarique Rahman now that he has taken oath? What are the immediate challenges and what would he be immediately confronted with?
Well, I think the very events of the last 18 months in Bangladesh, right from the July-August uprising of 2024, which led to Sheikh Hasina leaving Dhaka on 5th of August 2024, these 18 months have been absolutely tumultuous in Bangladesh. It has been absolutely chaotic. And I think to understand what Tarique Rahman should be doing now, I think we need to look at what has been happening in Bangladesh in the last 18 months. And if you look at it, we are told that there was a student uprising and popular revolt, etc. But we know that it was neither spontaneous nor was it a student uprising. It was a meticulously designed regime change operation against Sheikh Hasina. And at the end of it, what emerged was the Jamaat-e-Islami fully in charge and in power. The Jamaat-e-Islami has been holding the reins of power in Bangladesh for the last 18 months. Muhammad Yunus has been their spokesperson, more or less. He's done what they want him to do. And this was part of the meticulous design. Actually, Muhammad Yunus himself spoke in New York in September 2024 at the Clinton Global Initiative. And he said, don't think it happened just like that. It was meticulously designed. And he introduced the mastermind, who he called the mastermind, a person by the name of Mahfouz Alam, who's known to be a member of the band Hizb ut-Tahrir. And that person actually was serving then as a special assistant to Muhammad Yunus, and later on he became minister. So basically, Jamaat-e-Islami is a chosen front. Conduit is Pakistan. Behind Pakistan is the Western powers. They brought Jamaat-e-Islami as the core element of their meticulous design, and they wanted them to be in charge. In the beginning, Jamaat-e-Islami said, we don't need elections. We're going to have reforms for 4 years, and at the end, but then there was, real unhappiness by the people, unhappiness by the political parties, and so the elections were brought on 12th February. Then Jamaat-e-Islami is a strong cadre-based organization in Bangladesh. The only other cadre-based organization is the Awami League. So the Jamaat-e-Islami banned the Awami League. They were not allowed to participate in the election. Their activities were banned. So that was all geared up to make the Jamaat-e-Islami more acceptable and get more votes from the people. But the fact of the matter is that the last 18 months have seen complete chaos and anarchy in Bangladesh. The law and order has just not come under control. Complete dissatisfaction with law and order. And the Jamaat-e-Islami wanted to control every institution of democracy in Bangladesh. The bureaucracy, academia, judiciary, media. And the methodology they adopted was that if you don't like a person, you send a mob, what is called a mobocracy. You send a mob, surround that person, force him to resign, and then appoint your own guy there. So the Jamaat-e-Islami did that. They actually controlled every institution of power. Having done that, then they were really thinking that now we're going to get all the votes because the sheer brute power that they were able to do that. But I think they annoyed every segment. Now take the women, for example. The women is the largest minority in Bangladesh. They were completely appalled at what Jamaat-e-Islami wants. He says there's no question of a woman ever leading the Jamaat-e-Islami. Women are meant to be in the home, and he used terribly derogatory words for women who leave the home and go out and work. And this in a country where millions of women, ordinary women, are working in ready-made garment factories.
They power Bangladesh's economy.
Exactly. They are the backbone. They are the backbone behind the ready-made garments, which is, Bangladesh is the second in the world in terms of ready-made garment exports after China. And millions of them were out of jobs because not only there was anarchy, not only they were anti-women, there were attacks on minorities, the Hindus, the Buddhists, the Christians, and the Muslim minorities, Sufis and Ahmadiyyas as well. So all this created such a total turmoil, and then the economy went into ruin because Muhammad Yunus, who is the spokesperson of Jamaat-e-Islami, he was anti-Indian from day one. He just said, no, we're going to review this, we're going to review that. He changed the rules so that entire edifice of mutually beneficial economic cooperation that had been built up between India and Bangladesh over 15 years, and which actually was so beneficial because it gave Bangladesh 6.5-7% rate of growth. They moved out of the LDC. They were ready to move out of the LDC category, this tier of country category, and sometimes they have the best social indicators in South Asia. So all that was destroyed when Muhammad Yunus started tampering with the framework and the rules and all that. Factories had to close down. Women were unemployed. As a result of all this, when the elections were actually held on 12th of February, we saw that there was a massive anti-Jamaat-e-Islami vote. The Jamaat-e-Islami thought they were a shoo-in, that they would form their own government or they would be with the BNP as a unity government. The Americans let it be known that they are, favoring the Jamaat-e-Islami. But in the actual vote, the backlash against the Jamaat-e-Islami was so strong that the BNP has got a 2/3 majority, more than 200 seats. Tarique Rahman is the Prime Minister of Bangladesh.
Ma'am, you said that the Jamaat did not get the kind of numbers that it had hoped for, but it got 68 seats. And the Jamaat-led coalition got 77 seats, and this is by far their best performance in the past 3 decades. How do you reconcile with these two statements which seem to be contradictory?
That is because, as I said, the Jamaat-e-Islami banned the Awami League. So there was a huge vacuum. Because of the banning of the Awami League, the only two effective groups were the BNP-led alliance. They had about, 40-member alliance. And then there was the Jamaat-e-Islami. They had about 11 members. So the Jamaat-e-Islami also very deliberately chose an alliance of all the Islamist parties. So they did not, previously they've had an alliance with BNP. They've been in government with BNP between 2001 and 2006. But they pushed aside the BNP, saying we don't want your partnership. We want the Islamist forces coming together. This is their part of their plan to make a caliphate in Bangladesh, to bring in Sharia law. In fact, Sharia law was part of their agenda, part of their manifesto, till the Americans came and said, no, remove that. So then they removed it, but it's still there. They stopped talking about it, said, okay, we won't have Sharia law, but it's still there in their manifesto, it's still there in all their goals and objectives of the political party, Jamaat-e-Islami.
Yes.
So, because of the Awami League's absence, it became these two alliances. There were others, the Jatiyo Party, etc. But these people were not even allowed to campaign. Their offices were burned down, their rallies were disrupted. So really, it boiled down to these two alliances. And certainly because of this, the way it was structured, the election, the Awami League has got the highest number of seats it has ever got. Normally, it has not got more than about 12.5%, 12.2% is the maximum they've ever got in terms of vote share. I think that was in the 2001 election. Otherwise, they've got 5-6% of the vote share. I think this is the biggest indicator that even now, I would say, when 2/3 has gone to BNP, Bangladesh Nationalist Party, that the people of Bangladesh don't want fundamentalism, they don't want extremism, they don't want Islamism. They are religious, but they want, a democratic structure. They want the freedom to vote. Otherwise, how would they have voted such a large number? The 68 seats that you have mentioned that Jamaat-e-Islami got, they actually, interestingly, a lot of them are in the areas bordering India. So this is another aspect of security interest that comes in when we look at, the future of the dialogue between India and Bangladesh, because Jamaat-e-Islami has always been very active in the border area, especially in West Bengal and then in Tripura. And they've always, even though they were not members of parliament in that area, they were very active. They were all the push-ins, the illegal immigrants, the cattle smuggling, all kinds of activity. This time they've actually got members of parliament. So, a member of parliament is an influential person and you can influence local administration and so on. So one can imagine that they would be stepping up their activities in these areas and we have to watch out for that.
Yes. And what about the students? Because when this so-called revolution happened in 2024 in Bangladesh, it was largely student-led. That is what the media portrayed and that is how we saw it. Of course, there was the hand of the Jamaat-e-Islami and other people behind it, but they said, oh, it's a students' revolution and we're going to have a new Bangladesh. But this came as a huge surprise. This election came as a huge surprise, even for the students. They didn't win very many votes, ma'am.
So that's a very interesting point. Now, yes, it was projected as a spontaneous student uprising, which it was not. And then the people who were supposed to be the leaders formed their own party called the National Citizens Party, the NCP, right? Now, the NCP, supposedly students were actually not students at all. They were just members of the Islami Chhatra Shibir, which is the student wing of the Jamaat-e-Islami. And they formed this party. And in fact, in the beginning, during the so-called uprising, because they had taken the issue of quota reform, that there was a quota which right from 1972 had been given to benefit the children of freedom fighters and now their grandchildren. So the students had raised this issue. Jamaat-e-Islami had actually raised the issue some time back. And in 2018, before the 2019 elections, Sheikh Hasina had actually banned the quota. She had abolished the quota. So there was actually no more quota. So this issue did not exist. But after the 2024 election, somebody went to court in Dhaka and said, we want to reinstall the quota. And the judge said, okay, we'll reinstall. So it became an issue again. But Sheikh Hasina told them, look, I'm going to the Supreme Court and there I'm again going to ask for abolition of the quota. So it's not an issue. So she had thought she had managed the issue that way. But there were a few genuine students who came on board with the Islami Chhatra Shibir thinking it's a genuine issue. But when the Supreme Court gave its verdict and they more or less abolished the quota, they kept just 5% for women and so on. Many regular students just said, okay, now we're fine. We've got what we wanted. We are going back to our universities. We will talk to the government directly. And then when they saw that this National Citizens Party is formed, and then they saw that the National Citizens Party is aligned with the Jamaat-e-Islami, many people who would otherwise had joined the NCP left the NCP, particularly women candidates. They left. Some of them stood as independents. So actually this NCP, this political party, so-called Students' Party, had very few supporters. So they joined the NCP alliance, which in fact is a contradiction in term in that way, because they fought for, a liberal society and so on. They fought against what they thought that Sheikh Hasina was doing wrong, but actually they were doing the same thing themselves. And then even more surprising, to show you how the NCP had no support, in Bangladesh over the last few months, students' union elections were being held. And you can't fight as a political party, but then you make your proxy groups, etc. And the NCP was nowhere in those elections. All those elections were won by the Islami Chhatra Shibir. Even the BNP was nowhere in those elections. So it showed the organization power of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Because in the meanwhile, they had changed the vice chancellor. They had got vice chancellors of their own choosing. They had any professor whom they thought was not convenient for them.
Fixed the system.
They fixed the system. So the NCP actually was nowhere, even in the universities. So long before the elections were held, the NCP had shown that they don't have popular support. They have got about, I think, 5 or 6 seats in the the 77 that you've said.
Yes,
Many
6
of them,
seats, Mamra.
yeah,
Yes.
6 seats they have got. So that's okay. That's, all right. They've got 6 seats. The main leaders have got, but they don't have popular support. So it shows that actually the people of Bangladesh, students, Gen Z, which is supposed to have led the uprising, Gen Z remembers the liberation war. Because in all this process of reform, they told you about what they wanted, and they drew up this July National Charter of 2025. There was a referendum held simultaneously with the election. So in this charter they drew up, they made a set of 84 questions in 4 subsections. And everybody was supposed to vote on that in the referendum, yes or no, on all 84 questions. You either accept all 84 or you reject all 84. Anyway, so, all this and the referendum, it's gone through. They've got 60% yes, but they've got 40% no. It shows that there are many issues that, people don't accept. BNP, Tarique Rahman was actually campaigning against the referendum. But very near the elections, he was persuaded to switch, and then he started campaigning for. So basically what I'm trying to say is that in Bangladesh, the students have shown themselves believing in the liberation war. They may have not been born at that time, but for them it's a matter of pride that the liberation war took place and Bangladesh was able to obtain its independence from a very repressive, oppressive, colonial-minded Pakistan, who then unleashed genocide on the people of Bangladesh.
Absolutely.
So the students have really shown that is their value for them. They don't want any of this religion. And in fact, in between, it's a very interesting point, in between, Muhammad Yunus at the behest of the Jamaat-e-Islami cancelled his earlier program to have singing teachers and music teachers and so on. And he said, we're going to have religious teachers. The students erupted on the university. They came up and said, religion and culture are 2 sides of the same coin. We must have both. So this is their approach. It is not the Jamaat-e-Islami approach where you have Wahhabi Islam all the way through.
Having said that, it's very suspicious. You mentioned that the Americans told them, hey, no to Sharia and all of that. And they said, okay, we'll not talk about it, though they still have Sharia. My question to you is, a few days, maybe 3 days before the elections were due, Bangladesh signs a trade deal with the United States of America. And it's absolutely lopsided. It's absolutely lopsided. What gives or gave Muhammad Yunus the right to sign a trade deal when he knew that 3 days from now, there would be a new government in place, and he should have allowed that government to do it. I mean, why did he do it? And I want to hear the story in the background, man, because this is not a trade deal, this is something else. What is that something else?
Yeah, you see, this is what Muhammad Yunus had been doing all along. Even the very fact of his being sworn in on the constitution of Bangladesh was unconstitutional because the Bangladesh constitution at that time had no provision for an interior regime. So he was sworn in on a constitution which had no provision. Similarly, the referendum. He conducted the referendum at a time when the Bangladesh constitution has no provision for a referendum. So all these are totally unconstitutional things he's been doing. In the meanwhile, the Americans came, the EU came, the UK, they were the main supporters of the Yunus regime and of course of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Now with Bangladesh, America has signed a no disclosure agreement. So Bangladesh cannot reveal anything of what they have signed with America. And of course, as you're right, from the provisions of the trade deal which have come to light, things like, okay, if you buy American cotton and American cotton yarn, then you will get 0% tariff for those quantity of goods. But they can buy, but when it comes from America, it will be perhaps double the price.
Absolutely, ma'am.
And the transport time is like 3.5 to 4 weeks. How does it make it competitive? There is no answer to that question. There's a lot of talk in Bangladesh at all places that what has Bangladesh given to America? What has it agreed to? The behind the scenes, the no disclosure agreement. And there's a lot of discussion about it, no confirmation, but talk about, petroleum exploration rights for American company in the Bay of Bengal, maybe the monazite sands of Cox's Bazar, which are rare earths, they can be collected by an American company, processed on St. Martin's Island, then exported to America. All these are discussions and speculations which are going on. So certainly, and then very active defense cooperation between Bangladesh and the USA. They've had Air Force exercises, they have military exercises. At one time, there was talk of a humanitarian corridor through Bangladesh to the Arakan region of Myanmar. Yes. So all that is there, but that has now fallen behind a little bit. So there's a lot of discussion about what actually has been concluded between America and USA, America and Bangladesh. And I think now that the government has been formed, a lot of this may well come out in the open. So at least Tarique Rahman is going to have to decide on a lot of these things. I think American pressure will be there for him to follow through on everything.
I was going to ask you about the July Charter, ma'am. You've already spoken so much about it. A couple of points of the July Charter are that no Prime Minister will have more than 2 terms and, such things, which on the face of it are not too bad. If you look at it from... but I think the people of Bangladesh should be allowed to choose whether they want a person to stand for elections and all of that. I want to understand what was Yunus's hook, if I may use the word, for the July Charter. Why does he care about the July Charter? Who is the motivation behind the July Charter? Because certainly not a political party.
Actually, I think Yunus was interested only in the July Charter. He campaigned heavily, and in fact, to the extent that his administration was issuing letters to the army, to maybe the ministries, saying you must vote yes in the July Charter. And the Election Commission actually objected to those letters because you can't do this, you can't openly influence. I think for me, as I see it, the key influence in the July Charter, they're moving towards a presidential form of government. And the president is going to have extra powers. For example, he's going to be able to appoint key people, maybe the Election Commission, maybe certain other groups, political people, appointees. So in that sense, the president is going to play a much larger role. And the speculation is that Yunus wants to be president.
So Yunus can be president if he fixes the match like that.
Well, he has to be selected to be president in the sense that his candidature has to be put across for the presidency and to see how it works. So far, that is a speculation. In fact, long before the elections actually took place, Muhammad Yunus went to London in the month of June last year. And there he's supposed to have met Tarique Rahman and they're supposed to have discussed this and worked out a system where Yunus will be president. And Tarique Rahman, if he gets enough seats, would be prime minister. He is going to be prime minister. But the Amir of Jamaat-e-Islami would be deputy prime minister. So these two aspects are very important for Yunus. One is himself as president. Number two, a role in government for the Jamaat-e-Islami. That is very... Now, at the present moment, because Tarique Rahman has got more than 2/3, so he doesn't need anybody else. And in fact, in the campaigning, he did say, I will form a government of my own. But I'm sure he's under great pressure to include certain key people. Let's see what happens.
So he's under pressure from Jamaat-e-Islami, he's under pressure from Muhammad Yunus, and also from the Americans with regard to the trade agreement because, well, there is a non-disclosure agreement in place, which the head of state has signed. At that time, Muhammad Yunus.
They signed it, and certainly all these countries with whom he signed agreements, he signed agreements with Japan, he signed agreements with many countries. He had all kinds. I think he made 18 foreign trips. I don't know how many he made in the time that he was there. So now, are those going to be implemented? What is Tarique Rahman's view going to be on those? Because Tarique Rahman has said clearly that my foreign policy is Bangladesh first. So he wants to project that he is protecting Bangladesh's interests. And there are many issues which the people of Bangladesh, even the younger, the students, may actually object to. So I think he has to ride a fine line on this one to see what he'll accept and what he will not accept.
Ma'am, one of the first things that the BNP, the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, Tarique Rahman's party, when it came to power, one of the first things they said was, no, we want Sheikh Hasina back. So they're talking about extradition, which India is not likely to do. But they have already demanded extradition of Sheikh Hasina, like Muhammad Yunus demanded it. Now, here is the thing, ma'am. Tarique Rahman for 17 years was in the UK, and at that point in time, Sheikh Hasina, being the Prime Minister, was demanding his extradition. Can you please take us through this politics in Bangladesh where everybody's outside and the other party is demanding the extradition of the first party?
Well, that brings you back to the role of UK in this entire situation. You're quite right that when Sheikh Hasina was Prime Minister and Tarique Rahman was abroad, she demanded his extradition. UK didn't listen at all. Of course, in UK, we know that we've also asked for Vijay Mallya and so on. It's a hugely wrong point. But at the time when Sheikh Hasina left Dhaka on 5th of August 2024 and she came to India, actually she had actually asked to go to the UK and the UK turned her down.
But why would the UK do that?
Well, I mean, this is the duplicity of the policy they've been following. They want Tariq Rahman to be under their influence. They want Sheikh Hasina out. Sheikh Hasina, because she's been following a very nationalist policy, and she even said publicly about St. Martin's Island and about her own objections to giving St. Martin's Island to anybody. She was absolutely persona non grata.
So sorry for interrupting, ma'am. What you're saying is that this has nothing to do with helping refugees, helping political people, giving them asylum. Nothing to do with that. These are power games that the UK is playing, that, okay, Tariq Rahman is our guy. We're going to fund Tariq Rahman. We're going to make sure he's comfortable, because when he becomes the Prime Minister in the future, and if he does, 17 years back, he will help us and he will be our man in Dhaka, but not so Sheikh Hasina, because Sheikh Hasina has obviously taken another line.
Absolutely. I mean, in all these 18 months, the High Commissioner of Britain in Dhaka has been leading all the discussions, all meeting with Muhammad Yunus frequently, supporting Muhammad Yunus in what he did. I mean, even this question of, banning the Awami League, not allowing them to take part. At one time, even Tariq Rahman said, no, but why? Why are you banning it? All parties should take part. And I think also that the people of Bangladesh are very upset. And in fact, there was a national opinion survey saying that 70% of Bangladesh, one newspaper carried it, 70% of the people voting said we want Awami League to participate. Not that they're going to vote for Awami League, but they want Awami League to participate. Because
it is the principle of
exactly, free, fair and democratic elections. Even in that very opinion survey, that they said that BNP will probably get 70% of the vote. But they want Awami League to participate. Now, the same UK who in 2024, the same person was there as High Commissioner, was criticizing Sheikh Hasina, saying, how can you have this election? I don't count it because the BNP has not taken part. But BNP was not banned. BNP chose not to participate. Anyway, Sheikh Hasina was criticized. Now, in this election, when the Awami League has been banned, these countries did not say a word. They just went along with it. And they redefined inclusivity. They said, no, inclusivity doesn't mean all the parties, it means all the people. So this is what's been going on. These games are really, highlighting the hypocrisy of the democratic powers. The democracies who value their democracy. Can you imagine an election in the UK where Labour Party is banned? Can you imagine an election in USA where Republican Party is banned? But in Bangladesh, yes, that's fine. That's par for the course. And it's actually happened. So Tariq Rahman, in one of the points that he has undertaken even in the first few days, is that in many places across Bangladesh, where the Awami Leaguers and the BNP cooperated, they're opening the Awami League offices. They're breaking the lock. Yunus administration had locked all the offices of Awami League all across the country. Now that lock is being broken and the Awami Leaguers are being allowed to go in and so on. So it shows that the BNP has no objection to Awami League being back in the political mainstream.
One question which I'd like to ask, and which our viewers would also be very keen on knowing the answer of, is where did this anti-India feeling erupt all of a sudden? Because for a very long time, nobody discussed Bangladesh and India simply because it was stable, it was a growing economy, everything was going okay, we had lovely relations. And suddenly one fine day, Indians learned that, hey, we're being accused of interfering into the internal affairs of Bangladesh, and we're doing something wrong with Bangladesh. We're taking the side of Sheikh Hasina, we are supporting a person who's quote-unquote indulging in genocide. All these things came across thick and fast, and the Indians were confused. Where did this anti-India feeling come from?
Well, anti-Indianism is in many ways the stable of political opposition in all our neighboring countries, because they love to make India as a whipping boy and say anything that's wrong is because of India. And sometimes I've been assigned in one or two of the neighboring countries. At a political level, at the political level, political leadership level, you have very good talks, very good understanding, you agree on something. But again, for domestic consumption, the same political leader may say something else. It happens, it's par for the course. But in this case, in Bangladesh, anti-Indianism was used as a weapon to say that whatever Sheikh Hasina did, she did at the behest of India. And whatever she did was wrong, and India told her, and so India also has to be blamed, and
which is illogical. Because
completely illogical. Completely. And
you've been the High Commissioner.
Yes. And let me tell you one thing also, that everybody in India saying, oh, we depended too much on Sheikh Hasina. I can tell you that when I was High Commissioner there, the BNP was in power, Begum Khalida Zia, and she was an alliance partner with Jamaat. Our biggest issue at that time was a security concern, and that was support of the Bangladesh government for Northeast Indian insurgent groups. They were, doing their terrorism in Northeast India, then running into Bangladesh. They had camps there for training. They had homes there. They had businesses there. And it was a terrible situation for the Indian security forces to confront. It made it very much more difficult. But whenever we raised this issue with the BNP government, with Begum Khalida Zia, they would not respond at all. They would do nothing, or they would say, oh, go and see the camp, there's nobody there. So when you say we are coming to the camp, then they dismantle the camp and send it somewhere else, and then you go and you see a vacant space. So all this was happening. But when Sheikh Hasina came to power in 2009, she immediately said, I respect India's security red lines, and I will not help anybody, because for a foreign terrorist to come into Bangladesh, how does it help the people of Bangladesh? Why should I support a foreign terrorist group? So she accepted India's security red lines on Northeast insurgent groups. Anup Chekya was handed over. Paresh Barua melted away into China. For 15 years in Northeast India, there was only peace and development. Actually, the people, they even forgot about the activities of these. It was so good. We got peace and development in Northeast India for 15 years. And Bangladesh got the full gamut of economic cooperation. They grew at 6.5–7%. They came out of the category of LDCs. And they were very happy with what was happening. But again, so that is why India supported Sheikh Hasina's government. It's not like putting your eggs in one basket, all these kind of euphemisms that have been going around. No, it was based on a mutually beneficial outcome, a mutually beneficial solution, respecting each other's sensitivities. So that is what was the thing. And now we are prepared to have the same. We are told, Tarique Rahman, he knows that India's security red lines are what we want to be respected.
Ma'am, and my final question and my last question today to you is, where do you see the India-Bangladesh, I know it's early days, so it's very soon to say, very early to say, but where do you see the India-Bangladesh relationship going forward? You've known the BNP very closely, you've also interacted with the Jamaat people. Where do you see this going, ma'am?
I think India, we've done the right thing. Our Prime Minister sent a very good message, a very good tweet when the victory of BNP was declared, and followed it up with a telephone call with Tarique Rahman. So all that was absolutely in the right direction. The message is very clear. The messaging is very clear that India wants to have good relations with Bangladesh, and we are prepared to extend every helping hand. Now, the dialogue has to come from Bangladesh side. Muhammad Yunus in 18 months showed no interest in any kind of dialogue with India. He was just interested in criticizing India, saying, oh, you are all hegemons, you're war-bearing, this and that. He never came to India. He never sent any serious delegation to India. Our foreign secretary went there. Absolutely there was really no dialogue at all. Now the expectation is, the hope is that with Tarique Rahman's government, we will have a good dialogue and look at our problems in a mutually beneficial way. Our issues still remain security cooperation. That's a very important issue. I told you about the border, about the Jamaat-e-Islami, sensitivity of the border. Again, the same Northeast Indian insurgent groups, they have again started appearing in the last 18 months. They're showing up in Bangladesh now and then. We've seen the huge intensification of Pakistan-Bangladesh army-to-army cooperation. Pakistan is trying to embed itself into the Bangladesh army, even in the front areas, front positions. And, China, we've seen Muhammad Yunus going there and talking about Northeast India as though he has the only access. All kinds of things meant to kneel. They made a map which he gives to everybody who visits Dhaka. All these, one can understand this kind of positioning. They're trying to be very aggressive and so on, but it doesn't help in bilateral relations. And I think I would see that part of the vote which the BNP got is also a vote for better relations between India and Bangladesh. Because I don't think that the people who have seen the deterioration within Bangladesh over the last 18 months, whether it is law and order, whether it is the economy, whether it is relations with India, they've seen a sharp deterioration, and clearly they don't like it. So they don't want it to continue. They'd like good relations. People from Bangladesh, we were issuing something like 15 lakh visas a year for people from Bangladesh to come to India. And they come for medicine, for medical treatment, they come for studies, they come for pilgrimage, they come for shopping, they come for all kinds of, tourism. It's a mutually beneficial exercise. And I think that they would like to resume that. So I think that the indication from the people of Bangladesh is certainly in favor of better relations. But Tarique Rahman as Prime Minister will have all the pressures on him. The ones which are operating during the 18 months, those pressures are still there. Those positions are still there. The Jamaat-e-Islami is still very much around. They are in parliament in large numbers, as you said. So it is a balancing act, but I think that Tarique Rahman said he takes a Bangladesh first position. India has a very positive neighborhood first foreign policy. And between Tarique Rahman's Bangladesh first foreign policy and India's neighborhood first foreign policy, I think there is a great synergy. We can find common ground on this and work on that basis.
Thank you very much for joining us, ma'am. Ladies and gentlemen, with Ambassador Veena Sikri, we discussed so many factors about Tarique Rahman coming back after 17 years. We discussed, the relationship going forward. And there is one thing which is very certain. We share over 4,000 kilometers border with Bangladesh. And I think both the countries, it is in the best interest of both the countries to move forward for a better future for both our people. Thank you for joining us. I'll be back again shortly with another great guest, fantastic guest. Till then, Jai Hind, take care.